Time to address this section of the benchwork. And you can see the curve here and the radius of the valance, and I want the curve on the benchwork to match as closely as I can. And the same holds true for the left side. I want the benchwork corner radius to match the valance radius as near as possible. I had built this module, and at the same time I was working on a very large diorama. And it dawned on me that the diorama was humongous, and it wasn't going to fit on any shelf I had, but I'd put a bunch of work into it, and I wanted to see if I could save it. So I wanted to try to integrate it into that module. So after going through all the work of integrating it into the module, it ended up it just wasn't going to work. So I broke the top off of it, threw it in the trash, and I tried to save what was left. After removing the top part of the diorama, the top layer of foam isn't usable, and I got to get rid of that. I was able to separate that top layer of foam, and what was underneath was very usable. I cut the foam back, and now what I have is pretty much a blank slate as far as what I want to do with the river. And the next thing I needed to do was fill in all these gaps so the fascia would flow, and I would also know what the shape was so I can cut pieces to fit. I used a piece of L-girder scrap and cut an angle for the left corner, and it gives something of the apex of the fascia to attach to. I cut new foam pieces for the top layer on each bank of the river. I'll add additional pieces of foam to the bank as I fit the bridges in the future. I'm going to fill in this river bottom section here with plywood. I added pieces of wood in this section to give the plywood river bottom something to glue and fasten to. Here I have the plywood pieces in place to fill in the river bottom. Right now I'm assuming that I'll use plaster cloth in the river bottom, but I don't know that for certain, so I guess I'll just see when I get to that point. I have the left corner of this benchwork filled in now, and that radius adds quite a bit of additional real estate to the corner. I think my town road is going to be following the radius of the fascia around that corner. Here where that raised edge is the last section of old benchwork. There's something funky going on here. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention when I installed that little module in the past, but something's not right. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that. I'm thinking right now that I may just cut a pathway for the track in the areas where it's not level. So I'll just cut through the foam until I have a level path for the roadbed. This area I'm not concerned with. It'll all be cut down for the riverbank. But the other areas where the track runs through, that's going to have to be addressed. So this corner's a trouble spot for my benchwork, and I'll just have to fix it as I go. Well, another week, another track plan change. I thought about having the turnouts on my lift-out section, and it dawned on me that that's pretty impractical. I'm going to have 2 tortoise switch machines to control the turnouts and probably 10 wires. So I'd have to be able to connect and disconnect 10 wires, and that just seemed like a hassle. Plus, the tortoise switch machines would be hanging down below the lift-out section, and it's just impractical. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. So I ended up moving the turnouts. Here I'm using a number 8 left-hand turnout, and the other turnout will be a number 6 right-hand turnout. And using those 2 turnouts, it doesn't interrupt the flow of the track too much, and it just makes more sense to do it that way. I also lengthened the lift-out section from 28 inches to 32 inches. Lengthening the lift-out section to 32 inches gives me more construction options and how I want to build it. Now, I may just build it as a flat piece with 2 tracks, or, I thought about putting a bridge on it. There are several nice double-track bridges that would use up the majority of that 32-inch length. One negative from lengthening the lift-out section is it pushes the curve for the city loop up farther. And here you can see the curve for the city loop is pushed under the outer loop track. If I want to maintain a minimum 20-inch radius on the city loop, then this is the situation I'm in. I'm not too concerned about it because the elevation of the outer loop track at that point is about 5.5 inches, so I have plenty of clearance to clear out an area underneath it. The entire city loop track is at 0 elevation with no grade. The ghosted track in that image is a tunnel, so it might actually look pretty nice. With all that being said, it's now time to build this section of the benchwork where the track comes across the lift out. And this is the first section I built, and that angle is parallel to the lift out section of the peninsula benchwork. I use my 4-foot level continuously throughout this process to make sure that stub is flat coming off the old benchwork. I've attached the first 2 legs of support for the stub, and I had to run both legs through my table saw to get the correct angles. Here I have the support structure built. Essentially, it's a rectangular box. The top is attached to the benchwork, and then down lower it's attached to the L girder for the shelving. I enclosed 3 sides of the support structure with MDF to give it a nice finish appearance. I've also started setting the radius for the fascia that'll blend into that stub. I have a piece of 32-inch long, 10-inch wide, 1-inch foam set in place to simulate the lift-out section. Now I'm working on the short side of the stub. That's a very tight radius. When I'm ready to permanently install the fascia, I'll probably have to get it wet to get it to bend around that corner. Here we'll just kind of look things over. I'm about an 1/8 inch off true level. The old benchwork on the left is about an 1/8 inch low compared to the peninsula benchwork. I have one of the corners filled for the stub, and that's a pretty nice looking transition. And now I also have the short side done. We can see how the stub blends into the old benchwork, and aesthetically it looks pretty good. I'm looking forward to the day when I get all this material out of the room. Let's take a look at it and see what we got going on. With the strips of fascia clamped in place, it's not going to look as good as it will when we have the finished fascia and it's attached and tight. But it does give an idea how it's going to look when it's finished. Well, I think that's it for this one. And here are a few photos to show you where I'm at, and I'll continue on with the construction.